President Tinubu is in Abuja for inauguration of President-elect John Mahama.
National Assembly to commence 49.7 trillion naira budget defense with NTAs today.
My colleagues and I, we have agreed on the modus operandi and the workability for us to achieve the set target and goals.
And EFCC confirms dismissal of 27 officers for fraudulent activities and misconduct in 2024.
And then good morning, Nigeria. Today we shall discuss value reorientation.
All right. Each day, each week, we hear reports of misdemeanor of all forms in the dailies and also on the social media. Now, a recent story is the one about a 15-year-old girl conniving, allegedly so, with her ex-lover to kill her husband. Caught our attention.
Brazen act of desperation, you might say. But this scenario and similar mind-boggling high-skill crime and sharp practices around the country suggest failure of standards and values in our society today.
You hear the word, teach a child the way he or she should go, and when he's old or when he grows up, he will never depart from it. Now, profound instruction of upbringing for parents. But it's a principle that's slowly becoming unrealistic in some homes. At least that's what they say. For simple and basic understanding of values, let's say values are the principles and beliefs as well as standards that guide our individual or collective behavior.
Unfortunately, value systems have been eroded. Decorum, orderliness, basic norm and discipline are a tall order these days, creating a dent in the eye of the international community and beyond. The degeneration of these values have greatly affected our national image, and the situation definitely calls for concern.
Absolutely, Henry. And although conscious efforts have been made by successive governments to change the mentality of Nigerians and attitude to embrace good, behavior, sadly, not much or not significant improvement has been made in that direction. Now, of course, we all remember war against indiscipline in the 80s. I don't know, Henry.
Don't ask me.
Okay, I wouldn't go there. Well, that was in the 80s. To good people, great nation.
You can ask me.
Yes, okay. You know about good people, great nation.
Of course.
And then, of course, we had the do the right thing and change begins with me project. Don't forget, see something, say something. These are bold steps taken by successive administration to correct the anomaly. But, of course, we all know the result today.
They were mere slogans, I guess. Oh, well. In order to move to inculcate good values, President Bola Tinubu has announced plans to undertake massive values reorientation programs in the country that will promote shared values and beliefs under the National Identity Project.
Absolutely. Now, the president disclosed this in his New Year message to Nigerians when he says, and we quote him, that he will be launching the National Values Charter, already approved by the Federal Executive Council, FEC, as part of efforts to realize the goals and objectives of making citizens better and, of course, uncompromising in their devotion and allegiance to the nation. So today we focus our attention on value reorientation, and it's not coincident that I wore this fabric, Unity fabric, and I must thank the First Lady for this initiative. Now, this fabric is a testament of what I believe in, the values that I hold. I fly the green, white, green color of Nigeria. It shows that, first and foremost, above all sentiments, I'm a Nigerian first.
Don't make me feel unpatriotic.
No, of course, I know you would have. Yes, I know you, Henry. You're very, very patriotic as well, and that's why we're always here. So, and the ultimate goal for everyone is, of course, to be first and foremost a Nigerian. I am Claire Chikodinaka Adelabu Abdurasak, welcoming you to another edition of Good Morning Nigeria.
If that name is not on your IPPIS roll call, just know you can get salary for the month.
No. You need to know that we are all Nigerians. We are Nigerians first. That's what I said. But I'm also from somewhere. Do you understand? But you do emphasize where you are from. You know. So.
I understand totally. I do. Anyways, I just hope you got the joke. I'm here to read John, and I don't intend to add any middle name anywhere.
ERA is already typifies where you are. I mean, who you are. But Claire is an English name. It doesn't identify me as a Nigerian.
Oh well, I agree totally. In the course of this discussion, we'll talk about the National Identity Project, which was proposed by the National Orientation Agency, NOA, and has 7 institutionalization policies that will promote mutual commitments between the government and citizens. We'll be finding out all these and more on Good Morning Nigeria today. And of course, maybe you get to find out who is more patriotic between who's wearing green and white and who is not wearing.
No. That's not that. We're not here to compare. Yes, because I made a deliberate effort, to do that. It doesn't mean that we are any less patriotic, Henry.
Well, I mean, for those watching, I think maybe they should be able to now find reasons to be more patriotic.
Tomorrow is another day on Good Morning Nigeria. You can as well, put on yours.
All right, up next on Good Morning Nigeria is newspaper review.
All right, Chukwudiokelu Uwaja is right here with us, and it's time to welcome him to newspaper review. Chukwudi, good morning.
How are you, Claire? Good morning.
We're very well, thank you.
How's the household?
We're doing fine, thank God.
My dear, how are you doing?
Very well, Chukwudi.
Very well. Today is going to be hot. I better leave you alone. Good morning.
Okay, yeah, we have 2 papers.
All right, let's quickly see what the papers have this morning. We begin with the New Telegraph. And the lead story here says banditry. Niger governor issues BAM alerts, urges farmers to stay away from farms. The writer, to avoid IEDs planted by bandits, says military must clear suspected mine-leading areas before locals can move safely. You want to find out all the details. Page 3 would guide you. Above that, Senate reps begin 49.7 trillion naira budget defense today. That's on pages 2 and 4. Obi alleges threats to life over criticism of federal government. All right, that's on page 3. 1 dies, 3 injured as explosion rocks Abuja school. All the details on pages 4 and 27 of the New Telegraph. And we have Canada's Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, resigns. That's on page 6. All right, let's look below the picture story now. We have here Senator Kalu Tinubu right to have ignored IMF, World Bank recommendations. The writer says we must use homegrown policies to solve our economic problems, and that's on page 2. All right, Army uncovers 20 illegal refineries, arrest 11 operators in 4 states. That's also right here. Alleged fraud, EFCC dismisses 27 officers. All right, you want to see that. That's on page 2. And finally, from the front page of the New Telegraph, we have how family planning prevents stunted growth. Okay, interesting headline. You want to see what that is about. Let's quickly look at the Blueprint newspaper now. The Blueprint leads with Presidential Committee on Tax Reforms. We wrote 6 governors, only Uba, Sani, Sanwo-Olu met us. More revelations as regards the tax reforms, and the writer says others have no time for us. Governors Forum invited us, cancelled appointments 4 times. That's according to Oladele. All right, away from the tax reforms issue, we have 2025 budget. Senate to suspend plenary for 2 weeks on resumption. The National Assembly sets January 31 as tentative date for passage. Away from that, we have a picture here of pupils of Community Primary School Ijegu on the assembly ground as they resume after Christmas and New Year holidays. Of course, happy resumption to all the children going back to school now. And then below that, we have Abuja school explosion kills 2 students, injures 4. Not a good story. Police confirm 18 injured in Port Harcourt gas explosion. Away from all of that, we have EFCC dismisses 27. Of course, that's on all the papers this morning. Already read that. We'll move on to police arrest 50 suspected vandals in Abuja. That's on page 7. And finally, the Ibadan Stampede update on his ex-queen. Agidigbo boss principal must face trial. That's according to Oyo State government. All right. Okay, there's this one story just at the top of the masthead. I killed Okada rider, sold machine for 310,000 naira in Niger. That's according to suspect. And of course, that's a pointer to why we're having the topic we're having this morning as our discussion on Good Morning Nigeria. So that's all on the papers I have.
Well, the Nigerian pilot has very, very depressing stories on its front page this morning. And it's all about killings, banditry, and all not. In fact, the front page is brutal bandits. About 4, riders there talking about the attack in Damboa LGA of Borno State, and other stories. Of course, Henry has read out, but let me just take out 2 or so. IGP reassures of safety as police nab 17 suspected murderers in Ebonyi. Troops neutralized criminal gang who killed 4 soldiers in River State. It's also there. And, of course, there's disengaged staff members. So CBN demand 30 billion naira for compensation. And 80 bandits killed in 5 major joint security operations in Katsina. I think I'll just stop at that. Other stories, Henry has already, taken them from the papers. Chukwudi, if you're with us.
Let me quickly talk about the one I feel should be a lesson to our leaders on the continent. Handsome Justin Trudeau of Canada.
Oh, yeah.
He says, there's no point going on. The internal rebellion within my own party is so obvious that in the elections that are coming, coming up in the future, I'm not likely to be the the candidate of the party. It is better I bow out. I think he
read the handwriting and did the right thing
the right thing to do. That's the point.
Yes, one thing.
No sit-tightism.
Resignation for government officials outside of our continent.
Yes.
It's like come and go. Yes. I mean, they don't see it as any big deal.
It's not a big deal to them.
It's not a big deal.
If I'm no longer acceptable, there's no point staying on. Here, we think that it is do or die.
It's like we all know. Take a bow when the ovation is loud.
Loudest. That's it. So that history can be kind to you at least.
Precisely.
You talked about, or you alluded to the seeming orgy of violence across, it is not just right what is happening to us. Too much homicide, homicide happening all over the place. Now, let's quickly talk about the Boko Haram attack on a military base. Now, this is not like one of those ambushes. We say, oh, our troops are really, in harm's way. Mm-hmm. They came deliberately to attack the base. So that means that we should always be in a state of readiness towards such attacks. Because the impression here, the report here is that some soldiers were killed. Why would we not be able to ward off such people? Was it that the military base was undermanned, in terms of the number of people there? Whatever it is, all these questions are going because of the safety of our troops. This is not quite palatable.
The heavily armed group of terrorists stormed the forward operating base.
That's it.
That's FOB Sabongeri, engaging Nigerian troops in a brutal 2-hour firefight. We've so far recovered over 7 bodies, and many others are still missing, as source revealed. There are numerous casualties and the camp suffered extensive damage. Nigerian pilot is reporting that during the attack, several military vehicles, buildings were set on fire by the assailants, underscoring the group's growing ability to inflict damage. The incident highlights increasing, particularly after the death of whatever, and so on and so forth. And
yes.
You say, again, I don't like that our men are caught unawares, off guard. This is not in the character of the training of the military. Like, a Boy Scout, you know the motto of Boy Scout, be ready at all times.
Yes.
That because we are fighting, on all fronts. On all fronts.
Yes.
We are engaging terrorists, we are engaging bandits, we are engaging, all sorts of people who want to see, that Nigeria is hot. So our men, our fighting men must always be on the alert. Sometimes you see them, at, duty posts, even around, and they don't even care what is going on around them. And I want to take for an example, if you're coming from Nyanya and you get to the Karu Bridge, there's a military post there. Right in front of that military post, you find all sorts of activities going on there.
Going on around them. That's the
about.
Point. There should be a margin of safety, a space between them and those people.
Yes.
They shouldn't just allow civils to be so close to them.
Sometimes you see heaps, bags, plastic bags around, and I'm wondering, what if something planted in that?
I was going to say, please don't be harsh on our troops.
No.
But this Nyanya example you just gave,
yes.
I see it on a daily basis. And I actually agree with you. Yes, the military sometimes they want to show you they're friendly people, but it should not be at the cost of their life or a possible injury to them and all that.
Yes.
You never know who's who.
Precisely.
You never know who's
Precisely.
who.
It's unfortunate, and our hearts, go to the families of those who lost their lives, and of course to the Nigerian army. I'm one very great supporter of the Nigerian army.
I still remember your wonderful report.
From Maiduguri. We went there. We saw what they do. We saw them.
I think you saw them during Christmas period, because we were talking about people who were wishing their loved ones. That report. It really endeared you to my heart.
We actually went to the front line, and we saw the men. We went to the hospitals. We saw wounded soldiers.
It was a wonderful report.
Soldiers who were hurt by mines, and I that's why I really don't hesitate to in support of our military men, and we must give them the support. We must really show that, look, no matter the weakness, fine. Even the superpowers do get this kind of infiltration.
I get carried away by that report. One of my BBC trainers, I think it was Russell Pisgood, not Max Easterman. It was Russell Pisgood. He talked about how you need to humanize a situation sometimes. You humanized what is usually seen as a hard military life and all that. I will never forget that report.
Thank you, Chief.
I really wish our men in uniform well. Obviously, they were outnumbered. From what I can
I'm sure that the Chief of Army Staff,
it was more of an outpost, not really the military base as you know it. They would not dare go to that kind of
I'm sure
place.
the authorities will come out with the statement.
IED in Abuja school.
I think we confuse Abuja and outskirts of Abuja.
No, when we say Abuja, let's clear something up. There is a reference by civil servants, FCT. Now that FCT, by implication, is now being called Abuja. It is stretching semantics. But I know what you're talking about. Abuja Metropolis is not Kubwa.
FCC.
Abuja Metropolis is not Abaji. That's what you're saying.
Yes. The FCC is Federal Capital City. That's Abuja. FCT is the Federal Capital Territory. Yes. This incident happened in Buhari.
Yes.
A local government. within
The FCT.
yes.
Okay, let me simplify it. I read linguistics. Now, if you ask somebody who lives in Cuba, at Ihiala, during the holidays, where do you live? The
Abuja.
person will tell you they're in Abuja. That is extended meaning. That's what
I
they're
agree.
talking about.
Yes,
do you
I
understand?
agree. Yes, I
That's
agree.
it.
But because we should know, the newspapers, a part of our duty is to educate and inform. So we must situate.
Exactly. The accuracy is very important.
Very important.
Particularly when we are talking about things like this. Because when you say the bomb went off in Abuja,
hey,
that Norwegian who wants to come and invest in Nigeria, bombs are even going off in the capital city. So that's
anyways, where it doesn't matter where it takes place. A bomb explosion in schools or anywhere is something that we should watch and prevent the occurrence. This is very saddening, knowing that some students actually died in this particular
Be
attack.
careful there. This account says it was two of the people who brought
exactly.
the IEDs that died. So
Well,
accuracy on the part of reporters is very
another
important.
paper here says 2 students.
Yes, that's what you saw.
But happening in a school.
School.
I mean, it's not a good
No,
one
that
at
that
all.
is
For the
that is the
proprietor to
question.
be arrested,
Yes.
there is suspicion. Collusion. Let's leave it there.
Anyways,
please.
producer
Let's
says
not speculate.
the producer
Let's
says
not
we're out of
speculate.
time, and then the director is about to cut us off.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Time to shut up then.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll get into the conversation. Please stay with us. All right, this is Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the NTA. Before we begin our conversation this morning, which is on value reorientation, let's take this background report put together by Oyeyemi Ajayi.
Inculcation of the right values is the background of growth in every society. Right from the young age up to adulthood, value orientation is meant to form the thoughts and attitude of a child, which he or she is meant to grow with. Value reorientation is the restoration of a change of attitude towards a number of things that have been identified as wrong actions or of wrong attitudes. In Nigeria, a child greeting an adult or an older person on sight is a great value. Worthy of mention is the existence of trust, unity, peace and love amongst everyone. But right now, the opposite is the order of the day, and this keeps reoccurring with questions of where did we stray and how can we remedy and retrace our steps. Now, of concern is the spate of kidnapping, banditry, terror, insurgency, rape, ritual killings, fraud, corruption, baby factory, where babies are sold to any bidder, mother and father selling their children to raise money, jumping queues, and all sorts of sharp practices to beat established protocols, and a general failing of standard in family, desecration of institutions and society. People commit these crimes without being remorseful. They go scot-free without being apprehended. The report of one Owulabi Adieko, who killed his girlfriend, a 400-level student in a university, and prepared her body as ritual pepper soup for him and his mother, all in a bid to make quick money, was just one out of many cases of ritualism in the country. Even children now see the negative vices as the right thing to do, with some believing they are fun. Weekly, cases of arrest of drug couriers are read on the media, aside that of kidnappers and terrorists, which have now become a daily norm. No doubt, no society is free of crime and delinquent behavior, but the point of divergence is the degree and unacceptable nature of occurrence and regularity which has continually threatened the survival of the society, hence the need for value orientation. What can be done to inject the right values back to the society? A major question our guests will be answering shortly.
Very interesting background report there by Oyeyemi Ajayi. Thank you for that effort. And once again, we are looking at value reorientation right here on Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service. And our guests are already seated, so we'll begin the introduction. We have Professor Oke Ikechukwu, Executive Director, Development Specs Academy, and a very familiar face on Good Morning Nigeria. Prof, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Compliments of the season.
I wish you the same.
We also have with us our friend Ahmad Sajo, former Commissioner for Information and Strategy, Adamawa State, and I'm sure he will tell us why he chose to sit on that side, particular side today.
Well,
good morning to you.
Morning. I've not. It's been 1 year since I saw you last.
2024, I guess.
That's 2024.
All right. Also joining us for the conversation, but right in the studio via Zoom, all the way from Lagos, is the SA to the DG of the National Orientation Agency on Intergovernmental Affairs. It's a pleasure to have Sharifat Adesumbo as our guest. Good morning, ma'am.
Thank you very much for having me. Good morning.
All right, and I'm happy we have NOA joining us, and she's a lady. That gladdens my heart. Just as we, started this program, I was sharing with my colleague Yenre the reason why I had to, wear the unity fabric that I'm wearing. Of course, it's testament, of what I believe, the value that I hold dear. First and foremost, I fly our colors, meaning I'm a Nigerian first, before all sentiments and all that. And that is the collective goal that we aspire. Right? So in at value reorientation, the big question, is, where do we start? How do we start? But most importantly, I like to start with Professor Kechuku. Sorry?
Ladies first.
No. I like to start. No, I like to start with you. How did we get to this position where we are having to revalue our values?
When a child is born, the child has no values, right or wrong. As you begin to develop the child, it learns this is allowed, this is not allowed. And if everything you're teaching the child are the wrong things, that child will become a problem to society. If you're teaching him the right thing, that means you're giving him orientation is direction. So societies impart existing values to the what you might call not replacement or successor generations. Now, if you begin to impart the values that will lead to people not relating well, confusion will begin. At a certain point in the history of this country and of various cultural and ethnic nationalities, if you left firewood on the street and went to the market or to the stream, when you came back, it was still in front of your house, not anymore. So that means the existing values of respect for each other's property and so many other things had collapsed. It progressed. We had civilian government after the white man left. Then we had military rule. And you recall that what brought that military rule was the mother of some of our most respected leaders. In other words, you knew that leadership succession was either by election, given modern democracy we had, or hereditary positions in our cultural values. None of them was respected. And the emergence of that new set of leaders. I kill somebody and tomorrow you call me His Excellency. So that again is a form of reorientation. So impunity became part of our national values, repetition of such things, and then leadership recruitment also became a question of discretion. Consultation disappeared because if Sir Joe and I are each military governors, we appoint 6 commissioners, there's no consultation. I need us to see the trajectory. Such that by the time we are having democracy return, for instance, General Babangida took over in, what year now? He was in office for 9 years, right? Mm-hmm. But before him, there had been military regime. So we had 16 years of leadership without consultation, of leadership by information and announcement. So anybody who was born at the age of, was born at the commencement of that thing in 1983, was 16 already, a young adult, and has never seen or understood how it is. Those who were 10 at that time were 36 or 26. So that trajectory created also a new set of Nigerians for whom leadership is a position and the right to take decisions. Even the good intentions of the soldiers that took over were also misrepresented. So to that extent, we moved on, got a democracy that was given a track to run on. And then those who inherited that democracy, you will also have noticed, did not belong to the old tradition of Democrats. The old tradition of Democrats came on in 1979 That's why you could see the fantastic thing Jakonde did in Lagos, Sam Mbakwe did in Imo State, Old Imo State, Jim Wobodo, what's his name? Ajashi in the Southwest, among all of that. So those values collapse completely. So when we speak of values reorientation, it doesn't mean the absence of values. It means that the values on the table cannot lead us to progress, development, national unity, national productivity, respect among the community of nations, and that we should change those values.
All right. Sitting here listening to you with rapt attention, because, I mean, you're giving us a history of how all of this, eventually turned around. Who really should we be blaming for the current values that, we currently see? Is it the government, like you've said? Is it leadership? Is it our parents? Who is responsible?
There's nobody called government. But when you occupy a leadership position, you begin to set templates for how everyone else should behave. And if you stay long enough, whatever you're doing becomes the norm. So we stayed long enough for the wrong things to become the norm. Now, in terms of blame, the people ought to have this. And I'll cite a totally tangential example. You've taken over the government. You've made me governor. I'm a young colonel in the army, maybe 32, 33, 35. You know that much of that period, you will have, over the weekend, there will be a party, an all-night party at Government House, at least in my state and in several other states. Saturday it goes on. Sunday you sleep over the hangover. The point I'm making is this. In that state where I'm governor and doing all of this, there are traditional rulers, there are titled men, there are retired and serving government functionaries. It is their daughters that are transported for this. There are women leaders, there are women rights, there's National Council for Women's Societies. Nobody says anything. And so the feminine gender gets put on the menu as entertainment. The denigration of womanhood itself is a wrong value, but it has become entrenched now. That's the sort of thing I'm talking about. When also as leader I'm doing the wrong thing and nobody protests, those who should check me, call me His Excellency, come to me for contracts, even bring whatever it is I want. Already we are aiding a leader who needs to be restrained. And therefore you can't say, oh, it's just the leader. Supposing people refuse to cooperate. Supposing the office, the person who was involved in procuring these people, that's a real decay. So when we talk of national reorientation and the emphasis is only on national symbols, on external social graces, if you like, it doesn't remove the fact of a fundamental decay. And talking about leadership, now what's the price for, this leadership by the, if you're a scholar who has made some fantastic discovery or invention after more than 20, 30 years, what's the financial value? What's the financial value of somebody who scores a goal? Imagine that you reverse the paradigms, whereby, you get the point. The person who is doing what will develop society is the better rewarded. The younger generation will focus on it. In Finland, the best graduates are the best paid, and they are the teachers. They are not the ones in all these things. That's the kind of value orientation. Promoting, projecting, rewarding the behavior and practices that will lead to sustainable development. That's the issue on the table.
Prof, thank you. I'm compelled to bring in the lady now before we come back to in the studio. Let's talk to Sherifat. Sherifat, you listen to Professor Okeke-Chukwu. He has identified, two major layers, that I call at the parenting level. That's the family social level. And talked about the quality of leadership. My question will be, who actually needs this value reorientation, and what are the values that we are talking about?
Thank you very much. First of all, we need to recognize that national progress isn't just about policies and infrastructures. It's about the people. It's about the values we hold, like Professor rightly said, the decisions we make, which he also mentioned, and the kind of society we want to build together as a nation. And this is the drive behind, this is the driving force, I would say, behind the national values reorientation and the national values charter that the national orientation has launched. Professor talked about meritocracy. It's something that is at the center of the 7 for 7, which is a shirt I'm wearing as well, 7 for 7. And in the 7 for 7, we have equality, we have democracy, entrepreneurship and employment, peace and security, which has been talked about this morning, inclusivity, something Professor rightly mentioned, freedom and justice, and most especially meritocracy, ensuring that hard work and talent, not ensuring that hard work and talent is rewarded, not favoritism and nepotism. So it's what NOA is working on, and that's the National Values Charter. And if we look at the other 7, we're talking about things like duty of care, discipline, tolerance and respect, which has been spoken about this morning. We need to go back to the era where we respect and tolerate one another, celebrating our diversity and ensuring a peaceful coexistence. Leadership was also, he also mentioned leadership. This is something that is embedded in the 7 for 7 at every level, stating, leadership should not be a position of authority and people using that to suppress others. Everybody is a leader. So we're talking about leadership at every level, from grassroots to the highest authority. We're looking at transparency and accountability, environmental awareness and resilience. So these are the things that are embodied in the 7 for 7. Now, the question is, how are we going to ensure that all of these materialize? So it's not just another policy, it's not just another document that is lying around. And that's why
sorry, Sherry, I asked who needs this value reorientation. That's number one. Who needs the value reorientation? I said who needs the value reorientation?
Who needs value reorientation?
Yes, absolutely. Who needs value reorientation?
All of us. Everyone needs value reorientation at this point. And that's what the National Values Charter is about. It's
like the connection with Sharifat has, dimmed. But
yes.
I'm sure that will get better, and then we'll get back to her. But let's get back here. And I'm glad I'm the one asking Ahmed Sajo the first question. So, anyways, but let's talk about what's on the table, value reorientation. I'm still trying to break down all that Professor Okeke-Ichiko said, because when he tried to mention the period where things started to change, I mean the period where you could keep firewood and you find it. I wasn't around then. Yesterday we had some security men here, and the policeman actually said there was a time you would give a policeman a bribe, and he would ask you to chew the money. But these days a policeman would ask you, for bribe even when you're not willing to give. We're in a time where people are willing to do just anything. I mean anything. Kill their parents, just do anything just to make money. Like Professor said, I mean, do you agree that that it's a leadership thing, or you think that times have just changed, and we need to evolve? This is like the in thing, because I mean the Gen Zs will tell you this is the way life should be now. Do you agree?
Let's agree on certain things. First and foremost, we have one of the most difficult tasks in Nigeria today. Trying to bring up a child with morality when there is no morality anywhere for him to see as an example is one of the most difficult things we are facing today in this country. And let's be honest. Forget about, the theories of it. The practical things about what we're facing in Nigeria today is that, look, take the honors list, national honors list. Most of the people you see on that list are either government officials or rich people. Most. Take the honors list at the palaces, that are actually honored by our traditional institutions. Who are the people that are honored with honorary degrees in our universities? Who are the people that are respected within our communities? We've reduced all our values to just one value: ownership of resources, wealth. Unless we go back to somebody, they will tell you that we have respect for elders. Go to any function, you find rich young men in the front row, the elders at the back if they are lucky to have a seat. There is nothing we do now that is within the norms that we grew up with. We are in a time when parents walk up to the school and fight principals because their child word was corrected of an error. How could that child, ever think that there are values in this world? We pay for people to sit for exams for our children, and we turn the child that grows up through that kind of fraud. Tell me what that child will see as wrong again in society. So generally speaking, you were not there, but I was there. There's a woman in our village, I will never forget that. She sells fruits. She will put her fruits on the ground there and count some stones to represent the cost of these fruits, and drop the stones against each of the bunch of fruits and go back in to cook and do other domestic chores. People will come, pick the fruits, put the money and put the stones on top of the money and go. And she will come back and pick. I witnessed that. It's not a story, So there was no CCTV to see who was stealing. People had CCTV within their consciences. Now, when we came to form a country, a nation called Nigeria, it appeared everybody from wherever they are coming from, north, east, south, and west, went and looked for the worst values in their communities and brought to table. And we aggregated it and made it our national value. All the goods, we kept them away. And over time, the good began to recede from the memories of even those that knew about them. Now, few people knew we ever had good values in this country. Majority of the people believe that what is happening today in Nigeria is actually the norm. And what are the things that are happening? The NOA representative told you, nepotism, favoritism, cutting corners. But the worst of all the values that we are suffering now is the fact that nobody is punished for doing things wrong. If you do not punish wrong action, people will not see wrong action as being wrong. People, every day we hear they've caught somebody, he has stolen this amount of humongous amount of money. The next day you see him dancing. And you begin to ask yourself, so for stealing this much money, all you get is, to be celebrated. Why would I steal also? You see a lot of things happening. You see young people making rituals and getting away with it. The reporter said so. We just get away with everything that is wrong, and then we get very little that is right. And I think the first thing that we need to do, like Prof said, leadership by example. If the leadership itself, lives by the tenets of all the things that we believe are right, people will fall in line. But if leadership itself does not lead by example, if young people growing up do not see role models to learn from, if we're not mentoring them on the fine values of equity, fairness, justice, and inclusion, we will continue to get it
How can
wrong.
leaders lead by example is what I'm thinking. Because even in families, in homes, you see parents approve of certain behavior of their children, even when they know it's wrong. Even when they know those values they were brought up with when they were much younger.
And I'll tell you very simple. When Murtala Muhammad became the head of state, before he was killed, the first thing he did was that when he said he was going after people who stole money, the first thing he did was to return the one that he felt he took wrongly. Said, look, I was able to garner this much wrongly. I am returning it. So anybody that thinks he has something that he did not get correctly must be prepared to return it.
And that's why I like us to, since we're looking at how, to achieve this reorientation, I'd like us to start from the very first point that Professor Ikechukwu talked about. That's the family institution, because it all starts from there. The values and morals that we hold start from the family, starts from what you teach your children and all that. Most times when we talk about value reorientation, the tendency is for us to apply it to our country. It's just about Nigeria, nation, and all that. But we forget that it starts with us. The change begins with us. Professor Ikechukwu, talk to us about the role of the family institution first and foremost as the base for this reorientation.
Well, no family drops from heaven. Family values are a product of two core values: cultural values and religious values. If a parent is insisting that you do this and don't do that, look closely. It's either from that parent's religion or from the culture he or she grew up in. But even within culture, even at the time, we can say that we know that you would live and nothing will happen to it. You sleep with your windows open. Even at that time, there were always bad people. In the Bible, there were bad people, so it's not a generational thing. The only difference is that now the bad are the majority. So when you
because the parent tree, is
as viruses.
no, yeah, because they are religion and their responsibilities. Because point. We all are.
But yes. You see, our society is producing progressively less parents of value. That's what we're overlooking. Let's go to education. You got into primary school now, nursery school. Who are the teachers in most nursery schools? House girls and people who dropped out from secondary school. In other words, they're just people who take care of children and clean them up. That's your first level of entry. At this primary level, who are the teachers? Rufai set exams for the primary teachers. Was it secondary school? Secondary. They all failed. Well, we had a 46% pass of subjects below what they were teaching. Now you go to the university, those poorly produced students are poured into the system. So bad quality raw material into tertiary level education. You get to tertiary level education, who are the lecturers? The better paying sectors of the economy have drawn away the best students. So third-rate scholars in many places become the paragons of academic excellence. And so at the level of scholarship, there's decline. At the level of values, there's decline. At the level of academic integrity. Because you have people who have never seen, they don't know what an A paper is. They are teaching, they are doctors and professors. With PhD, sometimes they got on humanitarian grounds, if you like the expression. So what do you have? That's a core center of value, totally violated in most places. Religion. You know that I had this car I was always managing, breaking down every day. I get into public office. In 2 months, I have 5 cars. I build a 250,000 naira house. My chief gives me a chieftaincy title. I have a front seat in the church. I make massive donations during harvest. The message is going to the young people. If you want to amount to anything, this is what you should do. What that then means is that There is unconscious mentoring of a younger generation to replicate those values. So the new paradigm has become a form of values reorientation. And these are with concrete examples. Remember when Kayode Fayemi became governor? He wasn't going with siren or anything. Who were those who said, what is this? They were relations. They came and said, my friend, what? Is it ordinary shakara you cannot do? This is the first time the governorship is coming to our part of the state. People need to hear siren come. If you run over somebody's goat, you don't mind. It's our brother that killed it. Now, that's the crowd you have. So when you say the family, it will take the personal effort at retaining certain values for a parent to still transmit them. And yes, all the values around us are wrong, but it's also possible to give the younger generation, including your children, a reference. Watch those who have followed this trajectory, how far they went. I recall when I had to do a program for a state government, youth values orientation. In fact, one of the modules was on the music of Oliver the Cook, whom you know. Some of the most powerful, Anenwe Obodenwe and Nukumau. I told them, every hall, the auditorium was afire. They were all excited, dancing it. I said, as you're doing, please write down the names of all those mentioned. They wrote down, so the hall settled again. I said, find out how many of them were alive 10 years after that music. Everyone was quiet. A certain lifestyle leads to a certain. So that's a kind of reorientation and focus. Not academic lectures. That will not reorientate anybody or reorient anybody. You hold a retreat on values reorientation. You invite people like you and I who are listening politely. Some sleeping, some playing with their phones. It ought to go down. Drill down, there are youth leaders, there are prefects of schools. Those are the kind of things we do. Sajo is familiar with that, he's involved in it. That's where you go and change people. And you're not changing them for people to come and clap that Nigerian youth have become good. No. You're doing it in the hope and expectation that some of them, in the next 10 years or 15 years, will become leaders. Adeniro Ogunsonya, check his life. He listened to Zeke only once. See the impact he as a man made 30 years later. That's the sort of thing.
All right. Very deep, Professor. But you said it's mentoring that's going on. I also think there's a conscious mentoring, towards the
component.
Yes, towards the wrong direction. Because I mean, these days we hear people who are grown up tell younger people, "Can't you see what your mates are doing to make it? Why don't you go that way?" You understand? These are, direct from people, deliberately
misdirection.
Exactly.
Of the young. It's also there.
And it's very sad that it comes from parents. It comes from people that you hold in high esteem. But let's get to the NOA, essay to the DG of the NOA now, Sherifat Adesumbo. I hope your connection is clearer. I really, listening to Prof, I do not know how you intend to pass your message up to 7447. Is it just going, because he says, people need to see examples. They need to understand what would happen when they go in a certain way and when they go the other way. But you just coming out with some theory, just trying to educate people on transparency, meritocracy. How far would that go?
It's not just about educating people or passing down theories. It's not about theories. This is very practical. What we have done, what the NOA is doing, is we are institutionalizing the 7 for 7. And I'll tell you how we're doing that. First, we're going to make sure that the cartoon content that our children consume reflects our values and culture. So what we're doing at the NOA, 70% of our cartoon content, and we have started, must reflect our values and culture. Most of our children are being raised, it's like my DG often says, we're raising foreign children. And it's evident in the content, the entertainment content that they currently consume. Secondly, we have also introduced citizenship studies. This will be in the curriculum as a subject from primary to tertiary. We can tell you categorically that citizenship studies is already in the primary school curriculum. I believe that the Ministry of Education is still working on the secondary and tertiary. So that has been embedded in that as a standalone subject. And this is part of the move to instill back our values in our children and catching them young. We're also bringing back citizenship brigades. It's called Citizens Brigades. Just like when I was growing up, I was a member of Boy Scout and Girl Scout. That has somehow faded away from our education system. So we're bringing it back and we're launching it this year. We're launching it with 37,000 children, 1,000 from each state, including FCT. Now, we're also going to be managing our global reputation as well. And also talked about our national symbol. That's something we're very, very keen on because the NOA is a custodian of the national symbols, like our flags, the passport, the naira. So what we're doing is promoting symbols that unifies us, letting people know that this is our symbols and this is what unifies us. This is what makes us a Nigerian. I like when you started the introduction, you said I'm a Nigerian first, and that's why you are dressed the way you are dressed. It's true. We are Nigerian first because if you go abroad, nobody is going to identify you as someone from a particular ethnic group. You are a Nigerian. You carry the Nigerian symbol, which is your passport. And that makes you first a Nigerian wherever you go in the world. And within Nigeria, we should begin to see ourselves as that. Then also we're working with the NYSC. We already have our orientation with NYSC. But what we're going to do is embed the national values into it, the national values charter. And most especially, we talked about leadership. Leadership is very key. So what we're doing as well is we're going to ensure that all our leaders have gone through the training, the National Values Charter training. So he's not just talking about citizens, talking to people in the community, talking to every other Nigerian. We're starting with us because, like you said, change begins with me. So that change starts with us, and we're starting from the top as well.
Glad you referenced that, and of course I know that the past Minister of Information will be smiling because change begins with me was actually coined by Alhaji Lai Mohammed. But see, when I wrote my WAEC, in fact at the end of my last paper, I joined my mates for a night party. You know, at the end of your paper, you held parties in Lagos. So I joined them. Of course, my parents didn't know. And we went for an all-night boogie. When I got back the following morning, I got the beating of my life, you know, that also ended any form of night adventure for me. Unfortunately, women are said to be the greatest accomplice in all of this, in the eroding of our morals. Today, it is women that will encourage the young ones, you know, to go for parties. You see them wearing all sorts of, you know, artificial makeups, even at a very tender age. It is also women that will take their children to the exam hall and almost want to write the exams for them. It is women that will want their children to go to universities when they are not old enough. So, I mean, let's talk about the role of women in all of this and how we can address that.
We women have a lot to play in this, considering that the major challenge is we're beginning to adopt a foreign values, where women often feel that certain roles should be done equally by men, but we forget or neglect our traditional values. Now, going back to what you said, you were beaten by your parents as a way of cautioning, but in some women these days, will not even want to touch their kids. They would, I don't encourage beating, but they say that, oh, my parents abused me while I was growing up, or I don't want my child to go through what I went through. And that is why we have this challenge today. That's why we're facing this today. We're raising kids that are entitled. And it's mainly our fault as women because we don't want children to I didn't do this when I was younger. I don't want my child to be like this when I was younger. I want my child to be my friend. Yeah, your child can be your friend, but there need to be boundaries. So women have a lot of role to play in all of this. And it is when we begin to assume our role as women and as mothers then we begin to reorientate the mindset of our young ones. Considering the population, over 70% of our young people are under 30, and that is huge for a country like Nigeria. We have one of the largest youth population, and if we women don't take on our role as women and begin to do all we ought to do, make sure we instill that discipline, which is part of the 7 for 7 discipline. But in discipline, it starts from the top. It's not just telling, it's a top-down thing. Children are watching their parents, they're watching their mothers. So if a mother chooses to dress in a certain way, the child is going to emulate what the mother is doing. If mother does not have time to raise your male child, or you say your male child should not be in the kitchen to cook, you are raising the child who is going to be entitled.
Sherifat Adesumbo, but I would disagree with you and Claire on this. I don't think it's just women, that are playing a role in all of this. I would want to say that the men are playing a major role in why a lot of values are not being instilled in children, because a lot of men are no longer available. Those days, when your father, once he's it's time that he will be home after work, everybody behaves and sits up. We know that, only very few women can really discipline. Of course, they teach the children. But in terms of discipline, most times, in the past, I don't know what obtains now. I know once a man shows up, the children rather would, sit up and try to be. But, how many men are available? We have a lot of single mothers everywhere, even those who are still with their wives and children, don't really care what the children do and all of that. But, speak to us about what we should be doing differently. You're coming from an age where things were orderly. And for me, I never saw that orderliness. So that's why, as you talk about times where you keep fruits, and I wish we could go back to that time. I wish things could really be different, where you don't have to look up to someone to write exams for you. I wish children would just have manners. Okay, because even these days, you have parents tell you that it's only a child that's in your womb that you can vouch for. They say that even up to a 1-year-old that they carry on their backs. They tell you, the child can just do anything. What should we be doing differently? Is it that, I don't know, is it that we just need to get with this anyway? Tell me.
I think we're getting everything, wrong somehow. We're actually drilling, even us here in this studio. Let me tell you, the family is just a subset of society. Mm-hmm. You don't take, upset the family and keep it aside and assume that it has a life of its own. No, it's the society. We don't forget that the policies of government affect everybody, including the families. And when there are, hardships and difficulties like we're facing today in this country, sometimes both parents have to go out to look for what to come and fend for the family, and children are left on their own. But I think where we're getting it wrong is that we as parents, whether fathers or mothers, no longer have time for our children. We no longer have. Yesterday I had a discussion with my daughter. We had a very good discussion, and I was asking her two things: the value of education and the value of religion. And we together with my child, we defined it, that education is valueless if it does not make you a refined human being, if it does not make you a rational being. If you're just educated because you have certificates, but your thinking, your reasoning is not rational, your education has no value on you. The same thing, any religion that does not promote morality is not religion. It's not a question of about, I have faith, so I will go to heaven. Religion is actually to guide your moral self, your moral trajectory in life. How do you relate with others? Now, I'm still going back to what I said before, that we need examples. Today, I have seen religious leaders, senior religious leaders in both religions, copying politicians, entering black SUVs, having young people with suit and dark glasses
as bodyguards,
and escorting them. If you if your religious leader, if your moral compass is not approachable, where do you get the morality? Because the relationship between the citizen and his leaders is a relationship that should be built on trust. You trust me, I trust you. The relationship between a child and the parent should be built on trust. I trust you, you trust me. If the parents do not trust their children, we are lost. If the children do not trust their parents, we are lost. So we need to go back to to rebuild trust even within ourselves, and grow up in an untrustworthy environment. We don't even trust ourselves when we go out. And when you lose trust, the Chinese cookie, if you open it, you will see inside a small paper says, once trust is lost, everything is lost. We need to rebuild our trust.
When you talk about the society and the family, when you separate them, then you derail us, because Plato said society is a larger version of the family. So whatever happens in the society, takes it from whatever happens in the society stems from the family. That is how Plato described it. And I'm sure, Professor Ikechukwu, I shouldn't remind you. You were my teacher, but I have to make this quote now for us to understand. It was Socrates that said, "An unexamined life is not worth living." And René Descartes puts it further, "Cogito ergo sum." You need to discover yourself. Man, know thyself. So let us begin again. How do we begin to, what do we do? Let's take from the individual person.
No, I'll take the family, the womanhood you mentioned, and then the larger society. From the angle of the family, when you say that everything depends on the family, it's actually correct. Because if I go and steal billions, and my wife says, where did this come from? That's the end of that billion. It won't be spent in that house.
Precisely.
That's what it used to be. If I'm a bachelor, my parents, my uncles call, okay, come, tell us, what is this? Is this how we trained you? So when collapse also occurs at that level, we export that decay. It's as simple as that. Now, picture all that is going on in this country today. There are families where certain things can't happen. What? You're beginning to do what those, are you mad? There's the Igbo expression, the goat follows the person who is carrying his favorite leaves, which is the palm front. Today is considered a philosophy of leadership. No, it's an admonition. It was an admonition in those days. The goat follows wherever it will find food. So unless you are a goat, food should not guide your decisions. That's why if you come late, they had a ceremony in Sajo's house, he took the other title, I know by 6 everybody, and I'm coming home by 8. My father will say, okay, my son. Oh, because Sajo took a title, you didn't know when the sun set. Don't you know there's a good apple? It's considered the philosophy of leadership today. So the fundamental issue of the family is there, etc. But again, you can't deny the mix. That sometimes the particular is overwhelmed by the universal, which is what we are seeing. The good family or the good man and woman becomes a laughing stock. Some don't have the strength to weather the disgrace of being, and so the bad keeps eating into it. Now, coming to the role of the woman, which I think has become a bit of an issue here. I wrote a book. I have a book. The title is The Fate of Humanity Depends on the Woman. You will get your copy. It's been around since 2012 because the woman is central to all kinds of core values. We all have mothers. The first human being we all learned to trust in this world was a woman. The first human being who, in holding, you're expecting both protection and food, is a woman. But that's a matter for another day. The point being made is that it may not be entirely comfortable to locate it with one gender. And then also, talking about the discipline, I'm concerned because are we talking about discipline or just tyranny? and I'll give an example. You have children quarreling, and all of us are siblings, and oh, no, give me, and the man clears his throat. He's in the parlor, you're making all that noise. What's going on there? Peace is restored. But is that peace? Is a woman who could come out in that kind of situation, what is all this noise about? He said, oh no, he took my toy. And he said, how could you give your brother his toy? Is it yours? Did you ask him for it? That's bad behavior. And then you take it, good for you. He said, but shouldn't your brother play with your toy? That balancing. The strength to go through this, the man doesn't have it no matter how much he charges. He's like a melina tree. The woman is like a guava. The woman will bend without her roots moving. If the man must bend, he will break. He'll get to beat the hell out of everybody. Conventionally, that's a perception. So what I will then say in that is that in our contemporary environment, there are fathers who want to brag that their children made all A's. And they could be the ones to look for a school or a special center. There are mothers who will say, who are looking forward to saying, oh, my child, got her master's at the age of 18. Parenting is not a national issue, it's personal. My children, when you finish secondary school, you don't go to university. For 1 year, we call it a gap year in the family. You go and work somewhere on minimum wage for 3 months. You go and learn a skill, and in the course of all of that, you find a school. I won't find a school for you. My own is to pay after you found and justified to me the cost. In fact, and this is not storytelling, Ikenele is a current president of NIPR. 7 or 8 years ago, when my daughter, one of them finished secondary school, I was to do the gap year. He was the one with whom we found where she would do the gap year. They interviewed her and all of that. She was on minimum wage, 20,000 then. So when we were about to start, I said, 20,000. He said, no, okay, you've done it with this other. Let it remain real and all of that. So it was 20,000. So on a daily basis, or most of the, I'll pretend, I'm going in the direction of that office in order to be near it and drop her. But she was going by public transport. I bought her pepper spray.
I sorry to interject. I also did, if that's what you will call it, I also did the gap.
Yeah.
Yes, in my time. I mean, you knew I was way
That's
above.
true.
I was
About your colleagues in
20s.
school.
Yes, I was in my 20s when I entered university, and I was at the time. And I mean, this is what we're talking about.
So just to round up,
yes,
2 more sentences.
Because I wanted to ask you another question before we go to.
And then ask the question, so I take it. So I don't
yes,
take too much
what
time.
I wanted to ask is now Sharifat is talking about animated promos as a way of reaching to the children. That may be fine enough, but what symbolic ways can we reach the young adults, for instance, who is from a very modest family and who does not have any means of survival and all that? What model of value orientation can we adopt to prevent him from imbibing the wrong?
You see, mine
values?
is not a proposal. I'm talking about things I'm familiar with and I've been doing and Sajo is familiar with. There are what you call power centers, social power centers. In every environment, you have youth leaders. You have prefects in schools. You have women leaders. They become those with whom you do your TOT. The National Orientation Agency has offices all over the Federation. So, and you're talking, the cartoon, the concept is very good. We all remember the puppet show from Jos, NTA Jos. We remember Sesame Street, of course, it was imported, but it was used. But there are 2 issues here today facing NOA that wasn't facing us then. How many children have electricity to watch those programs? How many of them are available to watch it when they are hawking? If it's on TikTok, how many young people of that is the older generation that's on TikTok? That's why I think that this idea of cartoon is very good. Should not be dropped because it will reach some people. But NOA needs to be substantially better funded. The Nigerians we're talking about are not in Abuja or Lagos. They are in the rural area. That's why you have 99% of the people who need this. The deity they see is their local government, who himself is an agent of underdevelopment, immorality, and corruption. They have no counter reference. And so when you've done this in some societies and actually seen that the youth leaders become agents of change, it's giving you access to another level of authority below the political leaders. It's been done successfully. That's the sort of thing that needs to go.
All right. Many thanks, Professor. We'll continue the conversation, but let's quickly take this break. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. It's still Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the NTA, and the conversation is still on value reorientation, and our guests are still very much with us. I'd like us to go to Lagos now, where we have Sherifat Adesumbo joining us for the conversation. I'm sure you've listened to all the guests. I'll still, stick with my own point that, both the man and the woman, need to play their roles effectively, just so that the society can be balanced. That's talking from the home now. I want you to talk about the leaders specifically, because you talked about what you want to do for children, the NYC program and all of that. But it's been established that leadership needs to be corrected. People need to see, the leaders do the right thing just so they can follow. Again, we have more men who are leaders. So speak to what the NOA wants to do. Aside, you talked about trying to train them, but let us know in details all that you have in store for the leaders.
Okay, what we have in store for leaders is orientation for government officials. All government officials will have to undergo the National Values Charter training. Speaking to the 7 for 7, the Nigerian promise and the Nigerian promise is what every citizen is expected from Nigeria as a country. And the Citizens Code is their responsibility to themselves, to other Nigerians, and also to their nation. Now, when we talk about the Nigerian Promise and Citizens Code, it does not eliminate leaders. It is inclusive. Everyone, every Nigerian is included in this. And that is where I talk about the 7 for 7. So in answering your question, it's not just training for or encouraging the community to follow the Citizens Code. This also includes the leaders. And when we talk about our leaders, we're talking about from the grassroots up to the presidency. So it's a broad training for all, including civil servants as well.
This citizens training school, what is the content? What will these leaders be exposed to that they aren't exposed to now? And I'm just wondering, the corrupt leader, for instance, are you going to take that corrupt leader to this citizen school? What is the whole training all about? Because it seems to me that this is just mere academic.
No, it's not mere academic. It's what we're talking about, value reorientation. We're talking about discipline. We're talking about transparency and accountability. We know people know this, but leaders who are assuming positions, they need to be fully aware. And it's like swearing an oath of office as well, that these are the things that I am expected as a leader. These are the things that I'm supposed to do. I am expected to be transparent. I'm expected to be accountable to my I'm expected to be disciplined. I'm expected to demonstrate good quality leadership. Do you understand? So this is what we're doing. It's not pure academics and it's not pure training. Like I said, we are doing a lot in terms of institutionalizing all of this. And that is not just the leaders only. We're also going to from primary education onto tertiary education. And those who are in those who are already in NYSC, they will also be going through this training as well. The more you talk about this, the more we talk about all of these challenges, the more people begin to understand and they are more aware of the right thing to do. Take, for example, in Abuja recently, someone went to a group of they vandalized the manhole cover, started taking it out. That is because they lack duty of care. And sometimes it just comes back to their mindset. They don't understand that stealing that will cause massive damage. They're only thinking in one direction. The funds or the finance that they're going to get from these things that they've stolen. But they're not thinking of the fact that this would hurt the public. Someone might have a nasty accident. It could even be their mother or their father or even their sister or their brother. It could be a family member that will have an accident there. But because of the lack of orientation, these values are not there. That is why they are doing this. They don't understand. And you're destroying your own country. So the more we begin to talk about this, the more people begin, the mindset needs to be changing. People know the right thing to do, but sometimes they don't do it because of selfish reasons.
Many thanks, Sherifat. You talked about selfish reasons, and I'm just thinking about what Professor said earlier. He talked about punishment for. Professor Ahmed Sajo, you talked about if there's punishment for wrongdoing, of course it would deter people from going that way. But how do we work around this punishment thing? Because leaders who do the wrong thing are the ones in charge of these organizations who would punish. So who would punish who? I don't know.
I think we need to start looking at these issues very, very, very seriously. There are two things we don't do in this country, and these are the two things that have really led us to where we are today. First, we don't punish offenders sufficiently enough. Not that we don't punish completely, but we don't punish offenders sufficiently enough. And secondly, we don't celebrate good people. If I ask you now to name 3 people that you know that have done the right thing in this country, you would have difficulty. Doing the right thing has no reward. You can go ahead and do the right thing. I tell you, I suffered this a lot, so I know what I am saying. You do the right thing, and at a point, you are even regarded as cursed for not doing certain things the way they are done in this country. I am a victim, so I know what I'm saying.
I was going to say you. I was going to point at you.
You understand. So when you do the right, when we celebrate the right thing, when people do good things and they are rewarded sufficiently, Prof alluded to that. Somebody makes a scientific discovery that will change even the way our society runs. We have young people now within the ICT that are actually developing apps that help promote society. You don't hear about them. You hear a lot more about Yahoo boys, people who are doing things that are, making society progress. Yes. Nobody talks about them. We're talking about people who do things wrong. For as long as we celebrate wrong and overlook right, people will begin to think that being wrong is the norm. That's number one. Number two, we're talking about, in a family setting, whether it is the role of a man or the role of a woman. I think we're begging the question. We have 2 hands. We use the 2 hands to clap. It's impossible for you to clap with one hand, no matter how skillful you are. So we need to define roles. We need to check each other. If I don't want to take haram in my house, and my wife is willing to take haram, my unwillingness will be blunted by the fact that I have somebody in the house who is willing to take haram. But if both of us agree that haram should not come into our house, children too will not take haram. So all of these things are actually tied to the fact that we need, family units that understands right and wrong and decide to promote right and wrong. But we also need a society that accepts right and wrong and tries to defend, what is right and oppose what is wrong. And these are the things that unless we have reward and punishment, and these are celebrated equally. If somebody does the right thing, just like you take somebody, you say somebody has stolen billions, you take him to AFCC and you use the media to celebrate the fact that you have arrested somebody who has done wrong. When somebody does right, celebrate him also, so that younger people out there will also have signposts. They would have people, they would examples of doing right.
Not when somebody steals billions of naira and you punish the person, you send the person to 2 years or 6 months.
No, it's not
and then
2
when
years.
You bargain. Person gives back 200,000.
And then when somebody steals chicken.
The next thing, as he goes home, the next thing is that he picks a chieftaincy title, he gets an honorary doctorate degree, and then he is celebrated in a reception in his family, in his community, and the young people are there watching. So if for me to be celebrated in this community, I need to do this.
Ahmed, thank you. And I think Yenre got me wrong when she mentioned. I didn't say a particular gender. You understand how the fault. I said women mostly have a vital role to play. They have a major role to play because yes, not exclusive role to play. Because the woman, they say, in our African culture, they say the woman is the owner of the house. Woman, you are training a whole nation. So if you take it from that premise,
she's the first
you will
school.
Understand. Yeah, she's the first school
for everybody.
Yeah, she's the first school. Whether the father or the father is there or not. I remember in my own case, my husband was not at home. He was away, at work in other states. I was at home, but he does come on and off, So it depends. So the woman has
that is
role.
why mommy is the strongest
but
person.
let's watch these videos because we want to know how we can turn the hearts and minds of people who do this kind of thing and loot our treasury, loot our treasure, vandalize the government hard infrastructure, our taxpayers' money. If we have those two videos, we could just show it so that we speak to it. Yes, this is the manhole. We saw this. This had been trending. Yes, in the federal capital, city Abuja. I don't know, Prof. What can we do to reorientate the mind of people who do this kind of thing? Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You know why?
Yeah.
You see, this conversation, that's why when we speak of values orientation, and our perspective is that of policy, exhortations, principles, we forget the political economy of the operating environment. When a man is thirsty, very thirsty, in a dry land, if you give him gold, he has no use for it. A cup of water, he can pay 10 million for it. Now, these people who are doing this are not available for any kind of values orientation because you won't find them in the platforms where it takes place. They come out from their shanties. What they are seeing is a source of income, not part of a road. Their vision is so bad, so poor. The newly constructed the same thing has happened, not just on the manhole, but on the dividers, which are meant to do a temperature management.
As well as rail lines.
All over, rail lines. And this manhole thing you're talking about, there's an improvement. During the last Minister of Agric, every manhole in Abuja was lifted out. Every single one, because we took time to drive around Airport Road. Once you get to that National Hospital axis, all the way to Federal Secretariat, not one was covered. You turn right, not one, all over the place. So if you're talking about values orientation, I live in a shanty, I have no means of income, my uncle is fired, we need to eat. Those are the issues on the table. So that element, because the preachment could become annoying. Imagine you start by telling somebody that, look, I know the only reason you had to do this was because of hunger. It's some form of engagement. What point am I making? The National Orientation Agency has a very good program, but the content must be tweaked to admit some of the challenges propelling these people. That's number one. Number two, the content must also be tweaked to show an understanding of the crisis on the table. So that what I see is, we're going to tell them how to change and behave well. We're not acknowledging what's making them do that. And we're thinking that also after we've spoken to them, they'll start behaving well. Not while they're hungry, not while they don't know there's a local government chairman, among other things.
We'll have to stop here and let Sharifat speak to us. Sharifat, what are your plans for this kind of citizens?
We've currently trained all our staffs in all seven local governments. It's not just about talking to them. It's also giving them showing to them all the opportunities that are available to them within the country. Say, for example, like NEL funds. When our staff go out to talk to community leaders, religious leaders, They talk to the youths as well. Tell them all the opportunities, the policies that the government is putting in place to help them. Things that they could have access to, funds or loans that are available to them, because majority of this problem is people lack the knowledge, they lack the information, and they don't know where to get the information from. So we're not just going there to tell them about what we want them to do, or the Nigerian promise and the citizens code, what is expected from Nigeria and what is expected, their own responsibility simultaneously, but we're telling them what the government has put in place to also support and help them, how they can access services as well. And also to stress on the reorientation. We cannot stop speaking about these things. Why do people go to religious houses to talk, to worship? They go there so that they can be reorientated. They need to continue to hear the word of God, so their mind can be renewed on a daily basis. And that's doing. We cannot stop talking about all of these things. If we want people to stop this kind of vandalism, we need to continue to speak to the matter. We can't keep quiet and assume that people will do the right thing automatically. No. But we will continue to talk about this. We'll continue to reorientate our citizens. Let them know the consequences, because some people just do this for one, as a selfish reason, like I said earlier. They're only thinking in one direction. They're not looking at the consequences. Yes, it is their right to do certain things, but it is their responsibility. They have to be responsible as well.
Sherifat Adesumbo. But like Prof was trying to say, if a man is hungry, how much are you going to tell the person, that would change his or her mind, in the bid to get food, But as we round off the conversation,
two things, very simple. First and foremost, we have to expand opportunities. We're becoming too academic in the manner we discuss our opportunities available to people. Somebody that is already doing Babambola or beyond Babambola has no business with Nel Fund. So we need to expand opportunities on how income can be gotten. And then secondly, we need to increase our citizens' oversight. Citizens themselves can help. I had a situation where, communities were being ravaged by Boko Haram. My job was just a communications person. And I used that tool to approach the situation. Look, when your community is attacked, when your community is attacked, all you need to do, if you can't come out to confront people with guns, but you can make a hell lot of noise. Show your people that have been attacked that there's a community behind them. So the same thing with this kind of things. Let us reorient our communities to begin to oversight some of these activities. If you notice that he was stealing and people were passing, nobody was stopping to say, look, this is not good.
That gentleman wasn't there.
No. People were passing. I've noticed it several times. Okay. People just pass by somebody doing
like it's
wrong.
Not my business.
It's not my business. Exactly. So that's where we need
we're out of time. Many thanks. It's a continuous conversation. We hope that things would just change for the better, and the younger generation would see something different and a better Nigeria. Many thanks for joining us, Professor Oke Ikechukwu, Executive Director, Development Specs Academy. Many thanks for joining us. We do sincerely appreciate you, and of course, Ahmed Sajo, former Commissioner for Information Strategy, Adamawa State. It was a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for being our guest.
It's more of my pleasure than yours, and you know why.
All right. Thank you, Sherifat Adesumbo, SA to the DG of NOA on Intergovernmental Affairs via Zoom from Lagos. Many thanks, Sherifat. We hope that the NOA would, come up with more initiatives that would change the orientation of Nigerians. Thank you. Program this Tuesday. Many thanks for being our guest. Ian Reed, John. She's Claire Chikao Dinaka.
You know what they say about East, West, North, and South? Home is the best. Let's think Nigeria always. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.